The 22-year-old charged with murdering Ballarat mother Samantha Murphy has been identified as Patrick Oren Stephenson. A suppression order initially in place to protect his identity was lifted on Friday, meaning media could now name him. Stephenson was arrested by police in the early hours of Wednesday morning and has since been charged with the murder of Samantha. He was a former St Patrick's College Ballarat student and is the son of ex-Richmond and Geelong player Oren Stephenson. It's been revealed Patrick was the man investigators had in their sights for more than a fortnight before they pounced, arresting him and raiding his home. He has been remanded in custody and is due to next face court in August. Police are still searching for the body of Samantha Murphy and are asking the public for assistance.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 21. This photo shows 8-month-old Zhao Bao, who is lucky to be alive because his mother stabbed him 90 times after he bit her while she was breastfeeding him. The world's scariest haunted house, McCamey Manor, requires you to sign a 40-page waiver and undergo a physical and mental evaluation. If you manage to make it through the house, you could win $20,000. But to this day, no one has ever made it through. The little girl who voiced Ducky in The Land Before Time was shot to death by her father, who then committed suicide. Roman Emperor Nero had a boy castrated, dressed him up as a bride, and married him, all because the boy looked similar to his previous dead wife. A 46-year-old man found and attacked a 13-year-old boy because the kid was killing him too many times in a game of Call of Duty.
3 urban legends that turned out to be true. Number 1. In the 1980s, parents in Long Island terrified their children with the legend of Cropsey. He was a murderous man who lived beneath an abandoned school and would capture children. But it was later found that the old janitor of the school was still living on school grounds, and it's believed he was responsible for the disappearance of several kids, which made the legend of Cropsey true. Number 2. Charlie No Face was the terrifying legend of a featureless man who would roam the streets of Pittsburgh at night. But it was discovered that this man did exist. His name was Raymond Robinson. He was a very nice guy, and he only left his house at night as he feared his deformity would scare people. Number 3. Legend has it that an escaped asylum patient roams near the Fairfax County Bridge, where countless amounts of dead rabbits have been found. There wasn't any legitimacy to this legend until a couple drove through this bridge in the 1970s, only to find a man dressed as a bunny who threw an axe through their windshield before they got away.
Creepiest urban legend from each country. Philippines. White Lady of Balit Drive. Puerto Rico. Chupacabra.
Yeah, you probably should be afraid of this, because it's the second most homicidal thing in the Antarctica Ocean. First of all, you probably didn't know this murder puppy can grow to 12 feet long and weigh over 1,300 pounds. The leopard seal got its name thanks to its black spotted coat and the ability to murk almost anything in the water. Since they're built like rubber submarines, they eat basically everything including fish, squid, and crabs. But if you watch Happy Feet, you know they save all the disrespect for penguins. They'll actually wait at the ice edge where they know penguins will jump in just so they can turn them into a hashtag. And since the leopard seal can swim 23 miles per hour, almost 4 times faster than Phelps, they're fast enough to violate basically everything. Sometimes they'll launch themselves out the water onto land just to turn a penguin into a Happy Meal. In a season, one leopard seal can erase hundreds of penguins, to the point where they'll start murking them not for food but just for the stats. Oh, and you're not safe either. They have been known to run fades with people, and one actually grabbed a scientist and mauled her underwater until she drowned. They've also been known to bite holes in the inflatable boats people like to sit in. But to be fair, they're not all bad. One leopard seal made friends with a photographer and brought him dead and injured penguins to try to teach him how to hunt. In seal society, that's as wholesome as you're gonna get. But that doesn't change the fact that they commit actual war crimes on penguins. If I showed you all the pictures, I would get banned. Know how I said they're the second most dangerous thing in the ice ocean? Yeah, this is why.
Can you guess who this good boy is right here? This is 4-year-old Yoda, and he is the canine that caught Danelo Cavalcante today. Now I'm going to show you pictures of Yoda getting him, but I'm going to give you a trigger warning first because some of the photos are a little bit graphic. So if you don't want to see, keep on scrolling. So as we know, he was found hidden in this huge pile of lumber, and he had no idea that he was surrounded. But when he realized that they were there, he tried crawling away in a bunch of underbrush. But here's Yoda getting his ass. And here's another angle. As you can see, he got a little bit of injury on the top of his head there. Here's the group photo that they took. Look at him standing next to the police officers. He looks so little. I'm going to tell you, as a nurse, hospital gowns don't usually come down to the floor in grown adults. Anyway, here's his new mugshot. Oh my God. He looks a lot different than the first mugshot we saw. Well, I hope he enjoys his life behind bars. Got a little update for you guys. If you have been following the case of the 3 men from Kansas City, Missouri, who were found deceased in this backyard of their friend Jordan Willis's home that he was renting, it appears that Jordan is moving out. Now, if you don't know this case, here's a quick recap. These 3 men went over to the home of Jordan Willis on Sunday night to watch the Chiefs game. They didn't go home after the game. They didn't go to work on Monday or Tuesday. Finally, on Tuesday at around 10 p.m., Clayton's fiance had gone to the house, went around to the back because Jordan wasn't answering the door, even though she had been banging and hollering out his name and knew that he was home. So she went around to the back. She was able to break in through a window, and then she saw a body on the porch covered in snow. She called police, and after they arrived, they found 2 more bodies. Jordan apparently has no clue what happened and told people they must have just froze to death. This is after he had been ignoring everybody's calls and texts for the past 2 days, asking if he had any idea where the guys were. The police said there were no obvious signs of foul play, no arrests have been made, autopsy and toxicology reports are pending. So he can leave, but in my opinion, it kind of looks weird. I know there was talk about a search warrant on the home. I don't know if they did that yet or if they found anything. I was also informed that the police have the cell phones of the 3 guys and they're going through those. What do you guys think about this? I mean, I honestly thought the math wasn't mathing in this case as it was, but now he's moving out.
Yes, the picture at the end is real. In 1876, a woman from a very prominent family in Paris goes missing. After years go by and no one has a clue what happened to this woman, friends and family ultimately mourn her death and move on. 25 years later, and this anonymous letter shows up on the Attorney General's desk, claiming that the missing woman's family had a secret. Intrigued by the letter, the police go to the family's home, show it to them, and ask to search the property, to which they say, go for it. They search, they don't find anything, but on the way out, they notice something very peculiar. At the end of some stairs was a door that was padlocked shut. When the family refused to open it, the police break it down and make a horrifying discovery. Cowering on a rotten straw mattress in a pitch-black room was the missing woman, now 50 years old and extremely malnourished. Her mother had imprisoned her there after they had fought over her boyfriend, and she had not seen sunlight or another human being in 25 years.
This is one of the craziest urban legends I've ever heard, and it ended up being true. So almost 100 years ago, there was an aquarium in Australia that had a giant tiger shark on display. And the legend goes that one day, in front of groups of families, the shark threw up a human arm. And not only is that true, but it opened a murder investigation. Also, this week's episode is all about Australian true urban legends, so make sure you listen. So after the shark threw up the human arm, the police had to figure out whose it was and why it was in the shark's belly. Well, the first thing the police noticed was the arm was cut cleanly, not jagged like it was from a shark bite, meaning that the arm was intentionally cut. So now it's clear that this was a murder, but whose arm is it? Well, one thing they noticed is that the arm has 2 boxers in a fighting stance tattooed on it. So they end up writing about that in the paper, and one guy who was reading it goes, "Hey, that sounds like my brother's tattoo." His brother was a man named Jim Smith, and he was involved in the seedy underbelly of Sydney society. Jimmy ran insurance fraud scams in Sydney, and he was just involved with a lot of bad people. and the last person he was seen with was one of Sydney's most notorious criminals. The story has a lot of twists, including how was he involved with the last guy he was seen with. And there's a lot of fun Australian urban legends like the story of the Button Man, so make sure you check out this week's episode.
Most Scary Urban Legends, Part 6. This is Krasu. She's a Thailand legend. She's a female spirit who wanders the fields at night. At first you would just see her face, until you look down and she has no body, and just her internal organs. Her guts are usually covered with fresh red blood. Her face appears to look somewhat like a vampire's. She has very sharp teeth, and sometimes has a blue halo around her head. She is always hungry for meat, whether that be animal meat or human meat. Before she goes hunting, she hides her headless body somewhere safe, and she needs to come back to it before sunrise. And then she becomes a normal person again for the day with no differences from anybody else. One of her origins was that she was a princess who was forced to marry a high-ranked Seminese member who killed her people in battle. But she loved somebody else and was caught with them by the Seminese member. She was then sentenced to be burned alive. She then asked the witch for help, who summoned a spell on her immune to fire, but the spell worked too late and everything was burned besides her internal organs and head.
This is why you should never open your door for strangers. In 2013, a woman let her dog out to use the bathroom one more time before bed. After only a few minutes, she starts hearing scratching on her door, which is typically the sound her dog makes when he's ready to come in. But it just seemed way too soon for him to be done being outside. So she decides to look through the peephole to make sure it really is her dog. But what she sees is terrifying. A deranged-looking man is right outside her door, staring intently at her door handle, waiting for it to turn open. As she's looking in horror, unable to do anything, he starts scratching at the door as hard as he can, never leaving his gaze from the door handle. She manages to stifle a scream, she backs away and realizes her dog is still outside. So she goes to the side window, but there's no sign of her dog, and so she goes back to the door to see if maybe the man's moved. He hasn't moved, his mouth is open, and he's staring directly at the peephole. Then he turns around and walks away. With the man gone, she discovers her dog unharmed, his leash had just been cut. But that means he had a knife.
This is the story of how two kids witnessed a potential murder on Omegle. A 14-year-old kid and his friend Anthony were having a sleepover one night. When Anthony arrived at his friend's house, they both went upstairs onto the computer and onto Omegle. The boys matched up with a girl who seemed to be around the age of 18. The girl was sitting in a dark room with a blue light shining on her face. The boys were planning on being really mean and annoying. But then Anthony then said, "Who is that behind you?" Anthony's friend then looked behind the girl but saw nothing, so he thought Anthony was joking. The girl knew right away that Anthony was just messing with her. Anthony then insisted to the girl that there was someone behind her, so his friend played along with it. The girl turned around and saw nothing. Anthony's friend also saw nothing behind the girl. Anthony then said that there was someone hiding behind her bed. Anthony's friend then looked at Anthony as if he was joking, but Anthony was being 100% serious. All of a sudden, Anthony's friend then saw the same man that Anthony was seeing behind her bed. Part 2 will be out in a moment.
Just a few weeks before Micah's passing, her sister shared these posts via Facebook. Please do not fall for the nonsense being shared about my sister needing restoration, healing, and forgiveness. Narcs working publicly with no accountability is insane. As I was sitting in church today, I received a text message. Usually, I don't check my phone and I keep it on silent. But with everything going on with my sister, Micah, I've made it a point to try to keep an eye on it for fear of her safety due to others' behavior towards her. To no surprise, it was a message about what was said from the pulpit today in Myrtle Beach at her church. I have so much sadness that someone could take the position that was, hopefully, given to them by God, and use it for their own benefit, abusing God's gift of free will. Please hear my heart when I say if you attend that church, guard your heart and get in the Bible. The church is the people in God, not the pastor. When the pastor is married and he's on stage giving a sermon, saying he's going to pray to God for a hot wife that should raise 1,000,000 red flags. When a pastor is on stage in a sermon saying he's going to wave to all his Facebook haters on his private plane on the way to Miami, that should raise a red flag. When the pastor is up there saying that he's angry at God for always making his sermons about what he's going through in his life, you should take that as a red flag. When the pastor is saying he shouldn't be up there preaching to you, you should hear what he's saying and take it seriously. I can only imagine how emotionally straining it is for Micah having somebody in a position of influence spreading lies about her to the entire congregation. And I commend my sister for standing tall and standing on God's word.
Imagine your friend being murdered while on FaceTime with you. Kelvie McCrae was a stunning 18-year-old from Florida. She was a beautician and a model and was described as being very intelligent with a flair for life. Earlier this year, she'd been living at West Palm Beach. Her ex-boyfriend was 19-year-old Keyshawn Shaw. The pair had been together for around a year when she actually broke up with him. Now, she stated that he really didn't seem to accept the fact that things were over between them. A day prior to the tragic incident in question, police got a 911 call. Kelvie told the operator how her ex had tried to strangle her and had held a gun to her head. He tried to hold her against her will, and as she tried to flee the scene and get in a car and drive away, he had apparently flung himself onto the windshield and smashed it. Police charged him with false imprisonment, aggravated assault and battery. The day after, police responded to yet another 911 call. This time, though, it was a report of a shooting. Kelvie had been apparently on FaceTime with a group of her friends. Shockingly, her ex suddenly shot her in the head, neck and back. The incident unfolded in front of her horrified friends on FaceTime. They obviously reported what they'd witnessed to police. When authorities arrived, they found the ex in the house with gunshot wounds himself. Kelvie was unfortunately deceased. Keyshawn was leaning against a wall and was arrested and transferred to hospital. He then later died from his injuries.
Micah Miller's death has officially been ruled a suicide by the Robertson County Sheriff's Department. They released these last images of Micah going into a store and leaving her home on a Ring camera. They also released audio from a 911 call in which Micah called 911 to try to find out her location so that her family could find her after she took her life. It is so heartbreaking to hear and huge trigger warning, but I'm going to play that audio for you.
Robertson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
Let me see. You don't know where you're at?
At National Park.
What's the phone number you're calling me from?
843.
Where's the park located at?
In Fair Bluff.
Let's see.
I have my location on, I think, on my phone. Find my phone is on. I just did my my location.
Okay, I'm showing, hold on one second. I don't think you are in Robertson County. Are you at the Lumber River State Park?
Yeah, that's where I am.
Okay. Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay? Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute.
There are still questions about if anybody else is to blame for Micah's death. And there are a lot of unanswered questions in this case. But I am keeping Micah's family and friends in my thoughts because this must be such a difficult time for them. Rest in peace, Micah.